Welcome to Powered by Ancestry. I'm your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. On this episode, our focus will be fitness and exercise and ancestry. Yes, there is a link between fitness, exercise, and ancestry. And not a link that is often made, but I want to put this in perspective of your overall health and well-being, of which fitness exercise is simply a very crucial part of that. I'm going to tell you a story. There was a person I knew who exercised a lot from when this person was a late teenager up and into her 40s. And the person exercised diligently, disciplined, very focused. And one day I asked her, why do you work out so often and so much? Why are you so devoted, dedicated to it? I'm thinking it might have been a superficial reason, meaning they want to stay in great shape, they want to look good, they want to fit in that dress or that particular jeans or the like. And maybe some of that was a part of it, but what I took away from that was something much more important. The person said to me that she's doing all this work because of the health challenges within her family, within her ancestry. She said, look at my arms. I got them from my family. You see, her devotion to exercise and working out was amazing. But what was more amazing is that she was fighting against the inherited biological and genetic traits that became her, because she is a representative of all of her ancestors, and which took the shape of several health challenges suffered by that family. You see, she was also fighting for a healthier lifestyle that would allow her to be available for her family and children, but also available for herself. You see, much like in sports, coaches will say of athletes that your best attribute is your availability. In other words, if you can't play in the game, then you're useless. And so being available for those you love and care about is one of the most qualities in the human experience. And to be available means to be healthy and whole, especially when you have children and a family. And so her drive, I got. Her discipline, I got. What she was after, I got. Because again, she was fighting against these inherited ancestral health traits and outcomes, but also fighting for a different set of outcomes. And so the connection between ancestry and health and exercise and fitness is deeply important, because when we as spirits inhabit and work through this vehicle, this human body that we have been born into which we have a close circuit, we have a tight synergy, that body has to last us for our human life experience. And you know, its bumps and bruises, its illnesses and diseases, its weaknesses, its susceptibility, it's prone to break down, to be stressed. These are all of the human side of that spiritual experience. Or should I say differently, the human side of the spirit experience. And the way in which to maximize the longevity and the durability of that vehicle, of that body, is through fitness, health, and exercise. What I want to lay on the table are these. There are about 5, maybe 6 most prevalent illnesses or diseases that afflict people of African ancestry in this country and around the world. What are they? You know what they are. Diabetes, coronary heart disease, retinal failure, meaning of the eye, high blood pressure or hypertension, and of course, obesity. These 5 can be found throughout the African world in various but in common degrees. But guess what? None of these are death sentences. One or in combination will not take you to the grave, at least not immediately. Almost all of these illnesses and ailments are related to nutrition. That's right, I said it. A number of them are inheritable, which means we get them from the people that came before us. And what we also get is the metastasized form of them, meaning we are biologically mutations. We are mutations of our parents, they are mutations of their parents, and so on and so forth. And so as mutations, we get their mutations of their inherited illnesses and diseases. So what we have are not simply carbon copies of what they have transmitted to us. What we have are mutated forms. But guess what? Our human genome is always constantly evolving and maturing in connection with our ecology, that is where we live, which means our environment plays a role into our health and fitness. If you live in an urban center or urban area, it means that smog, loud noise, and other pollutants are going to be your challenge. Live in a rural area, it could be the runoff from the water or industrial waste or other kinds of pollutants that you have to contend with. So wherever you live, whether it's urban or rural or in between or otherwise, your environment, your ecology is always in dialogue with your human body and mind. And that dialogue is one that we want to pay attention to, because that dialogue allows us to recalibrate those inherited illnesses that have come through our ancestry, especially those that are nutrition based. And I want to stress that. So that hypertension, high blood pressure, that can be resolved through nutrition, diet, exercise. Coronary heart disease can be resolved through diet, health, and exercise. You see, the person that I referenced early on about her drive to stay healthy and fit, whatever the ultimate motivations are, her drive points to the real possibility of ending these ancestral ailments and challenges that affect our health. If we're not here for our children, then we're just not here. We're not available. If we're not here for our spouses or partners, then we're just not here and available. Or if we are here but are taking 11, 12 different medications, we're also not available for the people we love and care about. We owe it to ourselves and to them to make sure that we are the most whole and healthy as possible. And that ancestry, things that we get through our ancestry via our genetic makeup, that these things are not death sentences. These things are not permanent. That they can be resolved through a balancing act of exercise, health, and nutrition. Now, depending upon where you live, you have some strategies that you can work with. If you do not live on a farm, and most of you probably don't live on a farm or have access to a farm, then there are farmers markets. Try to eat the freshest foods you can, but within your locality, meaning within your environment. Why? My grandfather told me this. I think he was right. You always eat what's in season, and you always eat what's available in your environment. And you do so because the nutrients of the soil in your environment are the nutrients your body needs of that environment. Secondly, if you don't have a farmer's market or have access to a farm and you have to get produce because you need to have produce, then be very selective. Read labels at the supermarket or at the grocer. Read expiration dates and find the best produce you can with the resources you have and the means you have. You can also grow some of your own foods. If you have a house, make sure you have a garden. Basic spices, thyme, pepper, basil. If you can grow greens, spinach, kale, vegetables, cucumbers. If you can, potatoes, inside your house or in a garden outside. For those in urban communities, you can grow on your windowsill, on your ledge, anywhere there's direct sunlight. And you can actually create a small little garden. You can grow tomatoes, you can grow alfalfa. You can use water. In this case, hydroponics, if you don't have the access to direct sunlight. And for that, you would need simply a tub, water, certain nutrients, the soluble, water-based soluble nutrients. And of course, you would need to have a light to mimic the process of direct sunlight. So I shared these and many other ways in which we have to be creative because we're not farmers and we don't live on farms. But the quality of your food will engender the quality of your health. And with the right amount, the appropriate amount, I should say, of nutrition, diet, consciousness, and exercise, you can begin to address, if not fully resolve in your lifetime, and therefore for your children, those ailments that have come by way of ancestry. Because we do inherit a cast of illnesses that we had nothing to do with. Now, I want to be very clear that there are some illnesses that cannot be resolved by diet alone. So for instance, if a child was born of a mother on certain kinds of substances, then that child will have to go through a certain kind of program where herbs and medicine can help, and they're shown to help in terms of drug treatment. But that child may still be scarred in some capacity by that. And so we have to be very mindful of the limitations of what can be done depending on the severity of the illness that has been inherited. There are certain kinds of diseases that are inherited that for which there is no cure. And so for those, diet and exercise you might think will be of no use, but in fact it can. What it can do is actually prolong, if not increase, the lived experience that you can have. In other words, what I'm suggesting is that even with a disease that may be debilitating or a deformation of the body, that there are ways in which to work around that to ensure that you can maximize the body that you have, all that comes with it. None of us are born perfect, but we have ways in which to at least balance out what we're born with having the capacity to have an enduring and healthy life. Now, there are naysayers who will say commonly, and probably they're lying, my grandmother lived to 90 years old and she smoked and she drank. That's nice and that's cute. The problem with that narrative is that what kind of life did she live? As an amputee, what kind of life did she live? Barely able to breathe, what kind of life did she live? So my argument is about the quality of life, no matter how long or short that life may be. You see, I want to be available for my children, for my daughters. And that's why I make sure that I exercise daily, that I eat right, that I pay attention to my spiritual or my mental health, because I want to be available for them as a whole human being. Not as an amputee, not as a frequent guest at the hospital and clinic emergency ward, not as someone who is stuck on 12 to 15 different medications, that I'm more worried about when to take them and how to take them than I am about living life with my children. I don't want to live that life. And if you don't, then you may consider my arguments that those things that come by way of ancestry, they're not simply gifts and benefits, they're also challenges. And illnesses are one form of those challenges. But there's a way to resolve them. Again, through a combination of diet consciousness, meaning being aware of what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat. We should not be a quote-unquote slave to our stomachs, but to what the body needs, nutritionally speaking. Secondly, exercise. For your body type and for your goals, you can find very skillful and creative ways and simple ways to make sure you're getting enough cardiovascular workout. That is, of the heart and the lungs. Don't worry about getting big or buff or brolic, but getting cardiovascular health. Make sure the heart is healthy, the lungs are healthy. Two most crucial organs. And of course, our mental health. Make sure we're reading nutrition-filled literature. Literature that actually affirms who you are rather than attacks you. Literature that doesn't erase you from the world, but actually makes you feel present. And of course, spiritual health. Making sure you're in contact with the ancestors. Make sure you have an ancestral altar, photos of ancestry, water. That's simple. Things in which they cherished. It could be a ring. It could be a memorabilia. It could be something that was passed on to you. It could be their favorite drink and having the bottle thereof on that ancestral altar. And that will be your sacred shrine and sacred space to have and produce your connection with your ancestry. So for your spiritual health, your mental health, and your physical health, that's the balancing act. And whatever ancestry has provided us by way of illnesses, there are ways to manage, to balance, and to thrive from them. So I'm reminded once more of the story of that person who works out, exercises, and fights against those illnesses, those diseases, those ailments that plagued her family. But I also want to say this to that story. Exercise alone won't do it. Diet alone won't do it. Because at some point as we age, our bones get more brittle. Our muscles are not as flexible and get more tighter. And so we can't exercise our way out of ill health. What we have to do is combine exercise in moderation as we age, with adjustments as we age, with mental health exercises, with spiritual health exercises. And in combination, in total, that will give us and our bodies and our minds and our spirits the best opportunity to live out a meaningful, purposeful life. I'm Kwesi Kunadu. I've been your host and guide for this episode of Powered by Ancestry. Drop the comments and questions in the comment section or ideas you have for future episodes. Pleasure having you. Looking forward to seeing another episode. Stay well.